Welcome, baseball fans. It is time once again for the Running the Bases podcast. I'm Tucker Wells, joined as always by Coach Jordan Bounds. Coach, we have a 5-star spring day outside, and how perfect opening day is this Sunday.
Oh, I can't wait.
How do you feel about a 3-game slate on opening night, as it were?
I'm old school. I'd like to see the games start in Cincinnati and Washington. That was traditional for some time.
Right. We talked about that last year at Link, that it should be Cincinnati and then Washington maybe the second. But, we're going to do it's time for, of course, our big season preview show. Everything you need to know about what's going to happen in baseball in the regular season and postseason, and you can take these to the bank. I mean, we did so great last year. I don't know if we'll be able to do, any better than perfect this year. But before we get to that, you and I went to spring training. We're changing up the format. The podcast is going to be every 2 weeks now, so we didn't get a chance to talk about it on air last week. So what are your reflections on spring training in Florida? A few days to reflect on that, with a few days to reflect on that.
Hector Oliveira is still an adventure in the field. Looks like Frenchie's made the team.
Which is kind of amazing.
Yes,
but I'm happy for him. Happy to have my brother back in Atlanta, my long-lost brother.
I think the Twins looked very strong to me, and Tigers did not.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to all that in greater depth, but yeah, Verlander's not the same Verlander.
And Harper can mash the ball.
Harper can play a little baseball. That is for sure. The weather in Bradenton was not so favorable, but otherwise,
it was beautiful.
If you're telling somebody to go to spring training and it's their first time, what's the most amazing part of it, or the most enjoyable part of it? For me, it's seeing these superstars worth $1 grillion. There are the major leaguers, and they're playing in these stadiums that don't have jumbotrons, but it's clearly still Bryce Harper being Bryce Harper.
Right. There is a more relaxed atmosphere, and that in itself is something you never see during the regular season.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. It was kind of surreal almost, I would say. But all right, without further ado, let's get to it. Our 2016 regular season baseball predictions. And we got so much to talk about. We're going to divide this into 2 parts. And we're going to start with the American League. You and I are on the same page as saying the American League is wide open. We said this at the beginning of spring training. So how are your thoughts now as the season is but a mere days away?
It's going to come down to injuries, and you heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
I think, but it is still wide open. From the team that I picked to win the most games to the next to the 14th team, there's like a 13-game difference I see in them. Somebody, you get a hamstring changes everything there. So it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think the one team that seems to have no shot of contending would be Oakland. But everyone else you can still make a case for, even after seeing some spring games.
And Oakland could make a Sonny Gray blockbuster trade, now that we see what teams are willing to give up, and for the difference that he would make, that would be the biggest news of the whole summer.
Yeah, and they'd be pretty much they could trade for a dynasty almost on him alone. All right, well, let's start with the American League East. We'll go right to left as you look at a map. So American League East, how do you have it shaken out?
I thought you meant within the American League East we were to go from right to left, so I was trying to figure out real quick where Tampa Bay was in alignment with Boston.
I'm throwing you a curveball. This is a test of geography and not just baseball knowledge. So,
right. Well, I think the Sox have added the 2 most significant players to their club. They have address their needs better than anybody else. Every team in that division is flawed. They have great bullpens. And I see the Sox winning the division, but just by 89 wins, and the Jays and the Rays, either of them could be just right on their heels. Somebody makes a trade. Somebody, I heard today that James Shields was being made available. But somebody
Right.
like that could just change the fate of any of those teams. I don't see the Yankees. They have tremendous resources, but they haven't used them recently. They do have a great bullpen, but their starters are so suspect. And to expect all of these really aging veterans to continue having a renaissance late in life is a little suspicious at best.
Yeah, a little bit. A-Rod was recently caught on camera with the former, the CEO of the 23andMe. I think they deal in some cybergenetics or something like that. I don't know. This is all hearsay. But
I know. I heard that he dates somebody or has been seen with a woman that makes more money than he does.
That's this. Yeah, that's this gal, the CEO. I don't know. I'd look it up, but why?
The Orioles, I can't. I don't. They got to get healthy. Their pitching is suspect. Showalter's still going to get 77 wins or so. And things could change for them as well.
Right. I have the Red Sox picked as well to win the division at 91 wins, 71 losses. If you look at their depth chart and you look at their position players, in a very sneaky fashion, they have a good on-base team.
Yes.
With the Bogarts, Betts, Bradley Jr., Brock Holt. So I feel like they could go up on that win total, but that at the minimum, the win, I think they'll be there no matter what. The only thing is, Hanley Ramirez is still penciled in at first base.
And Panda's still penciled in at third.
Yeah.
Whereas they may be comeback player of the year candidates, the corners are shaky. And the back end of their rotation is shaky.
Yeah.
They're not a perfect team. They don't have they went out and got the best starter available.
Sure.
But they needed a couple.
Yeah. Do you argue that Price was the better starter versus Greinke available?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Tampa Bay, who I picked as a potential surprise team, I have them finishing last at 76 victories, but going top to bottom, Toronto with 86, Yankees I have at 500, and Baltimore a couple games under 500. So
the Jays at 86 and the Rays at 85. That's either one. And I have been leaning more to seeing the Rays do better.
Yeah. What of Toronto though?
They don't have enough pitching.
Yeah.
They really have to hope that R.A. Dickey gives them something, and he's
right.
73 years old.
Right, exactly.
I know he's a knuckleball pitcher, but
the 2016 Blue Jays as constructed remind me a lot of the 2013 Braves. They have kind of an unexpected great year, make the playoffs. They made more noise than the 2013 Braves, but they got guys that they've got locked up for a couple more years. And by all accounts, they could just turn directions and start selling them off. Don't you think if they're well below 500 coming into August, that Donaldson could be on the move? Could they do that to their fan base? Would they do that to their fan base?
That's a good point. Or whether they would try to, go a different route. They have some with. Joey Bats and Encarnacion, they have some tough contracts ahead.
Yeah. And I just think that, only having Price as the rental and now the great pitching prospects they gave up for him,
right.
They need those back somehow, some way. All right, so Red Sox to win the AL East. Let's move on to the Central, the powerhouse Central as it has remained. 1 through 5, how does it shake out?
I have the Royals first, tied with
A first place tie?
yes,
Oh.
with the Indians. And
You may have heard that here first.
well, no, that's I don't. I see both of them winning 86 games. Yeah, I mean, that's only a few games over 500.
Yeah.
The Twins I see winning 80. The White Sox and the Tigers I see both winning 79. I'll give your Tigers, maybe they're not
Thank
last.
you. Thank you. I
They're
appreciate that.
tied.
Breaking my heart with that prediction earlier.
But that's 7 games between first and last. I just don't see that much difference. The Indians I would take over the Royals if Brantley was healthy.
Yeah.
The Royals, they didn't add much. They've been doing tremendously the last few years. A sound organization. To expect them to be able to do it again this year, that's asking a lot. But the Twins, I think, are a much improved team. But I don't. I think they're going to. All of that young talent is going to take a step back this year.
The hitting talent, or both hitting and pitching?
Both hitting and pitching. I mean,
Really?
to expect them. I mean, what they won 83 games last year. I only see
Right.
them getting 80 this year.
You're right.
The White Sox, Tigers, they both have problems.
Yeah. Well, the White Sox I have is finishing last. I mean, it's. I think that this whole deal with LaRoche.
I think it helps them.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Do tell.
I think the team is now like, it gives them some attitude. They've all stepped behind the kid.
Yeah. That's true. But I just.
As rational or irrational as it is, it's given them kind of an identity of sorts.
Right. And they were lacking an identity. That is a good point. But I feel like Kenny Williams is gonna self-sabotage the whole situation somehow.
Maybe.
He seems very disagreeable, to say the least, at this point in his executive career. So I just have a bad feeling about it. I'm going to give the Royals some love and say they win that division with 93 wins.
That's a lot.
That is, but consistency, and they didn't add anything, but I don't know. They kept Alex Gordon, and that seems to be worth something.
Yes.
And then I also look at the other teams, outside of the Tigers, really did not make a whole lot of noise. The White Sox have a lot of good pitching prospects they can bring up, and I always forget his name, Jose Quintana. That's a solid pitcher if they can just get him some runs. So,
Right.
So there again, wide open.
The White Sox, who knows? I mean, I have the last place team winning 79, the first place team winning 86. That's
I also have last place White Sox 79, but Royals with 93. And then Cleveland I have coming in a close second with 92 wins and securing a wild card spot. So, and the Tigers, seeing Verlander get rocked those 2 pitches to Bryce Harper. But if he doesn't throw those pitches, if he just walks them, that game is, still tied before he gets taken out. So this was in Florida. But yeah, Zimmerman, they're going to have to rely on him, I think. And then, Daniel Norris, don't think he's going to be at full strength after all he went through last year. So, all right, now the American League West, perhaps the sneaky powerhouse division in the American League.
You must have some teams out there losing a lot of games. All right, I have the Astros finishing first and the Rangers second. I think the Rangers will be one of the wild card teams. I have them as the number 1 wild card team, and there's got to be a playoff for the number 2. I see Astros winning 90 games. I see them winning more than anybody in the American League. I see the Rangers at 87. If Darvish comes back strong, they could easily run away with it. I mean, they are. If Darvish comes back and is Yu Darvish, I think that's a lot to expect.
Right.
The Angels, I think they're going to win 80 games. I'm hoping that Sosha was behind the trade for Simba, and he has some new way of using him.
Right.
But it's not going to put 10 miles an hour back on Weaver's fastball.
Right.
And I do think this may be Socha's last year.
I know a team in the Southland that might like that to happen.
Well, I don't know. I don't.
Perhaps one going into a new ballpark.
I think we will take out of the organization.
Good point. And there's a couple of guys named Jones that are kind of floating around the organization again here in Atlanta.
Right, and there's a Terry Pendleton, and there are a lot of people that are around.
Yeah.
I think the Mariners still have a talented enough core to win 78 games. They might win a couple more. I have the A's winning 71, and if they start off really poorly, they might. Who knows? Who knows what they'll do?
Well, you're asking me about who's losing a lot of games. The A's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the Angels may be a lot worse than 80 games. That may just be me wanting them to be that good.
Yeah. I have the same as far as, who's winning and who's not going to be in contention. I mean, I think the Astros take the division, and I think the Rangers are back as a wild card. Mm-hmm. But if L.A. can get the Mike Trout show at it's hard to think he could be any better than he already is and has been. But, I think that Simba will definitely save a lot of runs and perhaps help pitchers win a lot more games. And you got to win games in order to, be better than the other teams. You heard that here first. But it's interesting to think that the Mariners, who you and I both picked last year to go a considerable distance, it's not as if they've lost a lot of those pieces that had all the potential last year. And Robinson Cano having a good spring.
Yes,
he's back to hitting home runs again.
Right.
However, they're in Phoenix and not up in the caverns of Seattle.
That's right.
All right, so there you have your divisions. Let's go to the regular season awards for the American League.
Are we going to do the playoffs? And we picked all of these. Who do you have as your wild card teams in the American League?
My wild card teams in the American League are Texas and Cleveland.
Who wins?
I'm going to go with Cleveland Rocks.
All right. Then in the next round, in the division series.
All right. With the way I have it, the standings falling into place, Houston will defeat Cleveland in one of the division series, and then Boston will defeat the Royals in the second.
We're very similar there. And who wins overall?
I'm going to pick Boston over Houston.
Okay. I have the same final as you.
Yeah.
I have the Rangers over the Blue Jays that could easily be the Rangers over the Rays, in which case then I might go with the Rays, but this is really going to happen. We did so well last year.
Right.
I think this is about where we had Seattle last year.
100 wins from this guy for the great Mariners of the North.
Astros over the Rangers, and then the Red Sox over the Royals, the Red Sox over the Astros.
Yeah.
Okay, your awards. Who's your MVP?
Trout.
Okay, that's going out on a limb.
Yeah. Well, I got to remember that Donaldson won it last year, but it's unless someone is winning the Triple Crown or have the WAR that Donaldson had. I mean, it's Mike Trout. I think of it the AL MVP for the next several years as Mike Trout's to lose.
I agree. I agree, but Donaldson was on a pennant-winning team last year.
That's a good point.
I only see the Angels winning 80 games, and Trout's the best player in the National League, no doubt. But I don't.
American League.
Oh, American League. But anyway, I have Mookie Betts.
That's a good choice. Very good choice.
Well, thank you. And part of that's because I have the Red Sox going all the way.
Yeah.
And I think it's maybe his turn to step it up. Who's your Cy Young?
I'm going to give it to here again, going out on a limb, but Chris Sale, because I kind of in a way feel like some of these White Sox players may be auditioning for other teams. That they might knuckle up for the purposes of showing off their wares. But again, there's a lot of viable. Sonny Gray could win the Cy Young, although it might not be on the Oakland A's. But I feel like the American League is so wide open. But Chris Sale,
for sure. Chris Sale is certainly one of the best pitchers in the game.
oh yeah,
Certainly, I mean, and
absolutely.
could very well be his year.
Yeah, and it could be one of these, Steve Carlton, a la Steve
Right.
Carlton with him.
I'm going with Chris Archer on the Rays.
Great hair,
It's
most valuable hairstyle for sure.
I think this could be his. I like the movement I see on his ball. I just think his arm is very electric right now, and I'm going to go somewhat out on a limb, not too much.
Yeah, I mean, he was rock solid, but it's definitely not going to be Justin Verlander. However, he is my comeback player of the year. I'm going to give him some love.
Okay.
Hopefully he'll see this, hear this, and it will encourage him to take it to the next level.
Okay. My comeback player is Marcus Stroman.
Ooh.
Of the
Interesting
Jays.
choice.
And he is certainly needed by the Jays to make a comeback. They need more pitching. I think Yu Darvish could be, certainly if he comes back healthy, he is.
Rangers I have the Rangers, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but I think the Rangers will have the manager of the year, and I think they could have the Cy Young, they could have MVP with, I don't know who would be their potential MVP candidate, but anyway.
I have AJ Hinch as the manager of the year. Now, who's your rookie of the year?
Well, you should know this. The Korean Babe Ruth, of course.
Yeah.
Byung-ho Park on the Minnesota Twins. He didn't perform when we saw him in Clearwater, but I just have a feeling about him. He's got what'd you say? He's got a big, long stride.
Yeah, he whips the ball. But, I mean, let's just see. He's, played in about 30 games against American competition now. But certainly has been one of the stories of the spring.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Joey Gallo. I don't think Hamilton will continue to play. I think Gallo will take over from him, and he'll get enough plate appearances with Beltry,
Fielder too.
To get enough at bats. And I see Gallo. He's my rookie of the year.
So for manager of the year, you have AJ Hinch in Houston, and I'm going to stay in Texas as well and give it to Jeff Bannister of the fabulous Fighting Texas Rangers.
Okay.
Do you feel
not a bad choice?
Do you feel like manager of the year is the most, everyone gets a trophy kind of award? Like Bobby Cox famously only won it twice?
I don't know.
In those 14 years?
I don't know. There can't be a more subjective award.
Right.
I
agree.
There's an argument that a manager doesn't make much of a difference at all.
Yeah.
And there have been managers said, I think it was Earl Weaver said, he didn't win any games, but he can lose some.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So before we go on to the National League, I want to get some thoughts as far as which pick do you have? It can be a team that's going to win a certain amount of games, or your AL champion, or your MVP winner. Which pick are you the most confident about, and which one are you the least confident on?
Okay. I would say I'm most confident that the A's won't win a lot of games.
That's really going out on a limb, but okay, that counts.
I think in the American League, the story is going to be which is the most painful goodbye to Big Papi or to A-Rod. And I think it will just be this kind of back and forth all year. And people just won't want to see them coming. And it's liable to throw a spotlight on some other teams.
There you go. I'm most confident that the Red Sox will make it to the World Series. I think, even as wide open as it is, I think that David Price will finally get it on point in his postseason. And, that there's a trade that's going to happen at some point, and feel like the Red Sox will be right there. They could be the ones getting Sonny Gray, you know.
Well, that's true. And
Yeah.
I also have the Red Sox going all the way, and I think they are one of the teams that is are likely to make a move at a time. There are going to be players that are hurt throughout the year, and there are going to be people that are not performing as they should. But the Red Sox seem to have a willingness to make a major move in the middle of the season.
Sure.
And they certainly have the resources.
Well, and what I'm least confident about is how any of the American League Central shakes out. I mean, the White Sox I have finishing last, they could very well be first. And, you know, my heart lies with wanting the good city of Detroit and the fine Tigers to put it all together this year before Illich dies. But
how many games did you have the Royals winning? 93?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay. I haven't predicted them correctly for a couple of years now. So.
Right. Exactly. All right. So we're going to take a break here, and we'll come back with the National League.